Hi everyone! So today we're going to be filling in half of this sketchbook spread. I thought it would be fun to do kind of a themed section of my sketchbook here, and I went with an Alice in Wonderland theme. If you've seen any of my other sketches before, then you'll know that I kind of do it almost like stickers, where I do a little drawing, but then I'll do like lots of little drawings rather than one cohesive drawing per page. So I just thought I would try something new. I'm just playing around, and I have a lot of thoughts about all of the artwork here, which I'll get into, but this isn't a watercolor sketchbook, just FYI. This is, I don't even know, it's like a maybe mixed media at most, but probably not even that. But I like putting my watercolors in there because I find it to work just fine. The paper really doesn't tear up, which I'm surprised by. And again, for what I like to do, it doesn't bother me. This is just for sketching anyhow. I'll use a different paper when I want to make something a little more complete, a little more final. But anyhow, just know that if it looks patchy, it's not just me. It is part of the paper that is the problem. But I'm just going in here and starting on the Queen of Hearts side. So when I had started this drawing, I knew I kind of wanted to do this good versus bad side. You know, have our central figure and kind of their environment with the Queen of Hearts and with Alice. And I've got to say, I do really like both these illustrations, but I'll just talk about the Queen of Hearts one right now. In concept, I like the design. I actually do really like those little card guys. They're pretty funny. I do like the composition mostly. I don't have a lot of bones to pick there. And when I had done the sketch, I really loved it. I do my sketches in like a red colored pencil. There's a certain look to it that makes me really happy, that I just really like about that red. I don't know what it is. Other colors don't do it the same. Red colored pencil is my favorite thing to sketch with. So when I had done the sketch, I loved it. And then I went in with a fine liner. And the only fine liner I had was a Micron PN, the plastic nib one. And that one can be kind of big and kind of chunky. So I thought, all right, you know what? Since I'm recording this, I want people to be able to really see what it is that I'm doing. So I'm going to go out and purchase a smaller fine liner. So I go to Hobby Lobby and I get like the smallest one you can. I don't even remember. It's like 0.03 or something. I took the cap off and I was like, I've literally never seen a pen so small. So I went in and I did all of my outlining before my watercolor. Which, one more thing to note, is that is not usually how I draw or paint, whether it's in my sketchbook or in, a final piece. Like, I usually do the watercolor and then I go in with the outlining. But again, I thought this would be much easier to see and it'll be a little easier to tackle, I felt like. So as I was doing the outlining, I found that the pen was actually too small, which it was great for getting little details like that collar around her neck. I would not have been able to get such a fine amount of ruffles if it weren't for this tiny little pen. But for the whole piece, I'm just not sure that I love that pen. I think it's better for details and accents rather than an entire drawing. And if you've used one of those little pens, then you probably know part of the problem I ran into was that this thing did not want to stay juicy for very long. I'd get a little bit and then it'd catch and I'd kind of set it down for a bit, let it, get all juiced up again. It wasn't a big problem, especially since it was a brand new pen. But I do think that its lifespan is fairly short, given that it's just the smallest little speck of a pen you've probably ever seen and that anybody's ever made, because if it got any smaller, it would be ridiculous. So I felt kind of guilty actually with my pen because, okay, I had spent $1.99 on it. It was not something that was going to break the bank. But I felt like I should have just used what I had. I should have just made it work. Granted, I don't think that the Micron PN, it's the only one I have that is waterproof. I have another fine liner that's like 0.4 millimeter. And is millimeter the right one? Oh, I don't know. It's 0.4, okay? And it's not waterproof. So I knew that that wouldn't work for the technique I was trying to do here. But I thought, I don't know. I don't like it when I just rush out and buy something and it's not what I need. And nobody likes that, but it just feels like such a waste, and it feels like there's kind of this guilt to spending money and trying to make your art better, and it's like, no, that's not what does it. You know, what I could have done is either been more patient, because I was feeling very impatient. I really wanted to get this video done. I really loved the sketch, and so I really wanted to film it because I was so excited about the artwork. But I wish I had been more patient. I wish I had slowed down and been more thoughtful about the items I was buying. And again, it was okay. And at the end of the day, if we don't make those mistakes, we're not going to learn. And so I hesitate to even call it a mistake. But I wouldn't know that this pen isn't really for my art if I didn't go out and buy it. So there is something good to it all, but just know that that's how I felt about this pen. I'm not 100% pleased with it necessarily. All that being said, though, that wasn't my biggest bone to pick with the illustration. So I had gone in, I had done the line work, and I didn't love it like I loved the sketch, which, to be honest, happens a lot of the time. I think a lot of artists actually feel that way, that we do the sketch and we're like, yeah, I love that. And then we do the line art or the painting and we're like, ooh, it's good, but it's not what I loved before. And I think that just is kind of attributed to the sketches are going to be looser. They're, of course, going to be sketchier. Where when we do line art, when we do the final painting, it kind of locks in that, I don't want to say stiffness because it doesn't have to be stiff, but it just locks in the movement, basically. And so I had done the lining and I felt okay about it, but I didn't love it, and I felt like the details were either too cluttered or they weren't distinct enough. And so then we get into the painting, and when I look back at this finished painting, I'm not mad about it. It's not one of those artworks that I hate the existence of and just want to tear out of my sketchbook and I can't sleep at night because I just am thinking about how ugly it is. But it doesn't make me excited. I actually decided at one point in this drawing or in this painting that I was like, I don't really care anymore about completing this. I don't actually want to complete this. And so I'm just gonna finish it. Which did help the process, because when I stopped caring so much and it became less precious, I was able to loosen up. There are some moments that are maybe a little sloppy that I could have improved on. All in all, like I said, I'm not so mad about it, and I think that my takeaway from this is, that this might be something fun to try again, maybe digitally or on a larger scale. A lot of the time with my sketchbook, I don't draw with the intention to draw it again later. It's kind of like each one is its own drawing, its own finished artwork, each sketch. But it's just in a more casual format, so to speak. But like I said, I did really like the concept. I thought that like the ears poking out from behind the bushes or the flamingo in the back, I thought they were all fun. I really do love those card guys. I think their expressions are very sweet, very cute. And I actually do like the Queen of Hearts character design. I don't usually draw things that have like a regal look or maybe even more medieval look, depending on, how you spin it. But I think she's kind of fun. Speaking of her character design, which I might get into more with the Alice in Wonderland side when I post that video. I do already have it painted and recorded, so that should come out soon. But one thing that I found challenging when planning this drawing was not to recreate what Disney has already done, but also not to make something so unrecognizable that you wouldn't know that it's an Alice in Wonderland drawing unless I told you. So, you know, with the Queen of Hearts from the Disney film, or the one that's the Tim Burton one, those Queen of Heart characters have a very specific design. Even if I redrew them from that reference, but I put it in my style, you would know exactly what I was referencing. You would know that the big heart-shaped hair from the Tim Burton film, or the with the Queen of Hearts with the big nose and her outfit and all that, it would be very recognizable to the Disney version. But that's not the original source. The original source is the Lewis Carroll book. And so I found that I had to look at what Lewis Carroll had done to know what was necessary to the painting and to the characters, and then to also see what Disney had embellished, what other filmmakers have embellished that have become kind of like icons of the story, which makes sense because they're a little more visual, of course. But I found that tricky, and I thought it was important to point out because when we're doing kind of these themed drawings that have been so, like the imagery has become so iconic with a specific version, you don't want to redo what Disney's done. You want to be able to be creative. But like I said, if I didn't put Alice in a blue dress, even though the Lewis Carroll version had her in a black and white drawing, you probably would be less likely to know that it's Alice from Alice in Wonderland, right? Because that Disney Alice in Wonderland is so just prominent in what we think of when we think of Alice in Wonderland. So at this point in the drawing, I'm finishing up. I'm just adding little textures. I went in with the blue sky, which did pull it together a little bit, I think. And then after this, I'm going to do some of the shading. And I admitted before that shading with watercolor is not something I totally have figured out yet. I kind of don't love it when I do it, but I feel like it needs to be done, and so I just do it and hope I learn a little bit each time. I use like a Payne's gray and a purple. That's usually what I do with my digital art, so I just kind of depend on that for watercolors. But like even with this rose, and like all of the roses, I have no clue what I'm doing. I'm just splashing this stuff down, especially because I'm kind of over it. I'm kind of ready to wrap up this painting, so I figured, you know what? It's good as it is. I'm not gonna worry about it too bad. I'm just gonna go for it and see how it all comes out. But sometimes that's just what you have to do with the painting. You just have to finish it and pat yourself on the back for trying. Here is how it looks all finished up. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you would change about what I did. And until then, I will catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.